You thought that you could have it all, and life could be a ball. Well, you fell and scabbed your knee. Now you can be free.
And it's 8 o'clock. Time for the Recovering CEO Twitter Space, 8 a.m. Welcome, everybody. Today we're focused on As Bill Sees It reading, as you may know. And it's a beautiful day. It's a Wednesday morning, February 9th. Beautiful morning. Great day to be sober. Great day to help others. Great day to be of service. And thanks, everybody, for being here. You know, it's the small things. Sometimes just showing up. Suiting up and showing up is half the job. So let's see, where are we at? So today we will start with a moment of silence, followed by the Serenity Prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Thy will, not mine, be done. All right, so again, this is Derek, recovering addict alcoholic. My sobriety date, August 13th, 1996. And today's reading is from As Bill Sees It, page 10, titled Out of the Dark. Self-searching is the means by which we bring new vision, action, and grace to bear upon the dark and negative side of our natures. With it comes the development of that kind of humility that makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yet it is only a step. We will want to go further. We want the good that is in all of us, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. But first of all, we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our step out into the sun. And then a quote from a letter from 1946. A clear light seems to fall upon us all. When we open our eyes, since our blindness is caused by our own defects, we must firstly realize what they are. Constructive meditation is the first requirement for each new step in our spiritual growth. I'll repeat that. A clear light seems to fall upon us all when we open our eyes. Since our blindness is caused by our own defects, we must first deeply realize what they are. Constructive meditation is the first requirement for each new step in our spiritual growth. So this reading, again, it's from the 12 and 12, page 98, and then a letter from 1946, long-ass time ago. These are written by Bill W. Again, this is As Bill Sees It. It's saying that meditation helps us understand our defects of character. Meditation helps us realize what our problems are so that we can then become aware of them and then essentially ask God to remove them. You know, it says constructive meditation is the first requirement for each new step in our spiritual growth. You know, so what does that mean? Does that mean we kind of pause at each step? You know, at each step we do, we kind of meditate on it and we, you know, reflect on it with God. It says humility makes it possible for us to receive God's help. Yes, it's only a step. We want to go further. We want the good that is in all of us, even in the worst of us, to flower and to grow. So there's good in all of us, even the worst of us, and we want it to flower and grow. But first we shall want sunlight. Nothing much can grow in the dark. Meditation is our first step into the sun. And I'll stop reading right there, but so this is interesting for me. You know, I understand the concept of, you know, self-discovery, right? Understanding my defects. I always say that sobriety, one of the greatest gifts of sobriety, one of the most obvious gifts is the gift of awareness, you know? When I remove the drugs and the alcohol, I can start to see where I was wrong. I can start to see how my behavior is affecting others. And, I can start to live in the light. And that's a big one, living in the light. When I was in my addiction, I was living in darkness. I was living a secretive life. I was sneaking around. I was acting inappropriately. I was doing things that were illegal. And I never really wanted to admit how much I was drinking, how many drugs I was using. I didn't really want to admit my activities. And there's a saying that says we're only as sick as our secrets. That's really true. When I get sober, when I live a sober life, I can't have secrets. I can't hide my behavior. I can't act one way, and be all addictive and then go out and try and act a different way. Ideally, I want to live in the light. I want to live out in the light in a public way, sober. And that's one of the reasons I'm doing the Recovering CEO. I want to live in the light. I want to recover out loud. Some people wear these shirts, recover out loud, like don't keep it quiet, don't hide it. Um, I hid it for too long. I hid my addiction for too long, and it was killing me. And I really believe that in sobriety, I need to get out there. I need to talk about it, talk about the fact. And honestly, for me personally, I've been really struggling with food, you know, um, sober from drugs and alcohol for over 25 years, right? That's way in my rearview mirror. But sugar, I've been kind of slipping on and relapsing on every 30 or so days, and I just can't stop it. And it just comes up just like any old addiction and says, hey, you need something sweet. Why don't you eat something sweet? And just like any addiction. And if I take the bait, which it's hard not to, because it just kind of comes up as such an obvious thing. It's almost like it could be saying, you're going to drink today. You're going to drink, you're going to drink. And I don't have a strong enough defense against it. So over time, I built up really strong defense against drugs and alcohol. Um, but I haven't seriously worked a food addiction program to the point where I have a strong enough defense. So sure, I can try and not eat sugar, but then it comes back. And it comes back. And it's a really good example to me of, what half measures availed us. My old sponsor used to say, half measures doesn't avail us nothing, half measures avails us half. And that's dangerous behavior for an alcoholic, because half measures avails us half. That means, in some ways, it means I'm going to get half the promises or half the good things that are out there, right? Um, so it'll be better than it used to be, but it won't be great. So that's kind of okay, kind of. But the trouble is, and one of the reasons it says half measures avail us nothing is that, you know, if I act in half measures, then there's a good chance I will slip, right? As illustrated with sugar. So I'm not fully committing to a program of recovery. I'm not fully admitting powerlessness. I'm not fully doing the work of a sober person, right? So I kind of benefit because I stay off sugar for a while, but then it comes back. So really it's availing us nothing, because when it comes back, and some of you know, if you've had slips or relapses, um, when I relapse, when I slip, it's bad, and I'll use with a vengeance, and like for me with sugar, I'll eat as much sugar as I can in a day, and then I'll kind of feel like crap, and I'll feel sick and and then the next day I'll start off better, but then, it often goes sideways again, and it's one day at a time in my addiction, which is no way to live, it's just no way to live. It's unsustainable, and if I was doing that with alcohol, it would be causing real problems, because alcohol, alcohol and sugar are very similar, right? They both kind of give you that rush, of um, some sort of stimulus, it both triggers your brain and gives you the chemical reaction. But alcohol really, really affects my mood, where it makes me do crazy things, and it also leads me back to drugs, and that's when it really gets dangerous. I'm probably not going to go bankrupt, buying M&Ms and eating chocolate chip cookies my wife made. I'm probably not going to go bankrupt and lose everything. But if I do go back to drugs, then what does that do? Then that's a really slippery slope, because that's where I go back to spending all my money and neglecting my job and neglecting my family and just go back to being high all the time. And it was very difficult for me to live when I was high all the time. It really was, and I proved that to myself back when I was, my early 20s. I experimented with it a lot. I proved it to myself. I was sick and tired of being sick and tired. I couldn't do it anymore. It was clear and obvious that I couldn't do it anymore. That I was an addict and an alcoholic, and I needed to stop if I wanted to live a decent life. So I did that. I went through the pain, suffering, and the work of that. It took me time. It took years to get over it. It took hard work, tons of meetings, working the steps, surrender, 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 hitting my knees and asking for God's help. It took all those things. And so why do I think that I can quit any other addiction without that level of effort, right? That's a serious level of effort. So, sometimes for me, because it's been 25 years, I kind of pat myself on the back and say, well, Derek, you dealt with your addiction. You did all the hard work there. Now what? Now I have all these other kind of character defects that I become aware of, character defects in 6 and 7. That's kind of what this reading says, We can tell once we meditate, once we achieve sobriety, you can start to see the other things that are causing problems in my life, and 6 and 7 it's really a good place to get a lot of insight. 6 and 7 is about, a couple of sentences in the big book. It's very small, right? I mean, it's like less than a paragraph and you're past it. So, but it's really the crux of the program. 6 and 7, they say, separates the men from the boys. It's like this is where the water meets, or the rubber meets the road. You could say it's 4-step and stuff, and sure, if you don't do a 4-step, you'll probably drink again. But 6 and 7 is where the spiritual growth happens. Six and 7 is what made me realize that I'm having a hard time, and I'm still getting high off other addictions. Sure, sugar is a big one for me. I realized it last night. I was driving home from the basketball game. I went to a basketball game last night, and it was about an hour away, and we lost, right? So I was pissed off. I had a little bit of an argument with my daughter because we were trying to leave because the game was over, and I was like, "Fuck this, we're leaving." And then all of a sudden, my daughter's like, "No, no, no, wait!" And she was there with her friends. She's like, "Oh, can you drive us back to our dorm?" And blah 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 blah. And I really didn't want to do that, because I wanted to get home, and I didn't want to cut back through campus and take them to their dorm and do all that. I'm like, "Why don't you guys just walk? I mean, it's not that far." And I was kind of angry about it, and it made me realize that was kind of my addiction there, right? Because I was angry that we lost. I wanted to go home. I was just in a pissed off mood, right? I didn't want to be of service to anyone. I didn't want to help anyone, And so I was kind of a dick, and it was embarrassing. And some of her friends were there, and I'm like, "You guys walk, I'm not going to drive you." And so that was rude, and I had to apologize, but that was an example. But also, I think it was partially because I'm on a sugar relapse. Honestly, I was just mad. I wanted, whenever I use an addiction, whenever I use some sort of substance, then right at that point when I was feeling the pain and the distress and the anger of losing a game, which was hard for me because I'm kind of a sports addict, then I got angry. Whenever I want to act out and my family comes at me with some shit, I often will lose it, and yell. If I ever come in the house after being somewhere, and when I was out, maybe I was thinking about some sort of sexual thoughts, like this is another one for me, right? So you can be high on some sort of sexual fantasy, just like you could be high on drugs, right? So if I'm thinking about something like, oh, I saw something or something stimulated me and I was thinking about it, entertaining the thought, right? Entertaining the thought of some sort of inappropriate sexual thing because I'm married. And then I come home and it's kind of like snap back to reality, pay attention to your family. My wife has things for me to do, my kids have questions, all this stuff. I will often snap. And that's what it means to be in the addiction, you know, because I'm not present. Like I am disconnected. I am off in fantasy land, you know, thinking about getting high, thinking about doing things that are going to get me high and getting high and just thinking. And then I get snapped back to reality and I'm a dick to everyone. And that's the addiction. A lot of people when they drink, it says when you drink, it's like instant asshole. Like they just turn into a mean person, partially because they want to keep everyone away from them. It's like, get away from me. My addiction tries to isolate and kill me. So my addiction will turn me into a person that will make you not want to be with me. You will not want to be with me when I'm in my addiction. You're going to say, get away. I don't want you. I don't love you. And I want you to say that. I want you to say, get out of here. And I'll tell you what, every time my wife gets mad at me, and tells me to fuck off and tells me to leave or tells me to, that she's mad at me or doesn't want to be with me or whatever, I know she loves me, but it's more like when she pushes me away, that just triggers my addiction, right? My addict says, oh my God, see, she doesn't love you. She doesn't want you here. You need to go do whatever the fuck you want to do because you have permission now, right? You have a reason. You're angry, you're abandoned. Here's another woman abandoning you, just like my biological mom who abandoned me. Here's another woman abandoning you. Go change the way you feel. And really, I need to grow up. It's tough. And even dabbling with sugar addiction is so dangerous for me. I mean, the sex stuff, I can't engage in fantasy. I mean, that's a big problem for me is fantasy. Um, but even, stuff like that gets triggered and prolonged by, maybe watching inappropriate television. Like I said, I've been watching that HBO Euphoria. Probably shouldn't be watching that. I mean, that show is about as triggering as you could get of any show. It's straight up addiction on your TV screen, and there's like that one show, Shameless, on Showtime or whatever. I could never watch that, right? That show was such a train wreck. It was so disgusting to me. Um, right. So I couldn't watch that. But Euphoria, I mean, it hits a little closer to home, right? I have teenage daughters. A friend of mine was saying he watched Euphoria a couple times, and he's like, "That makes me never want to have kids. If you have teenage daughters, you should not be watching that show." And here I am watching it with teenage daughters, and one of my daughters loves that show. It's her favorite show. The other one won't watch it because it's so disturbing. I don't know which is better. I think not watching it is better. um, but that show's a mess, and everyone's a freaking mess. Whether they're doing drugs, they're in abusive relationships, they're using sex. I mean, just alcohol, crazy, crazy stuff. There's just such generational trauma, right? And you can see it, and they kind of show it. They show the generational trauma that's passed down, and the terrible things that these people had to go through, and the terrible abuse and bullying and society pressures and everything. But in some ways, the shows makes me feel better. Like I'm not alone, right? I'm not alone. Like the one dad on the show. I mean, he's like married, and he's a successful businessman. Like he owns half the town, but yet he's meeting, men and sometimes underage, you know, uh, girls in transsexuals, like in hotels and, having sex with them from these hookup apps. And he's just over and over and over all through the years. And it's like a double life, and he keeps it secret and it's awful. It's terrible. And he lives with that trauma and he passes it on to his kids. And he like is really abusive to his kids and he ignores and neglects his wife. And um, it's just sick behavior. And in some ways, it makes me feel better. It's like, well, Derek, maybe you're not that bad. You're not doing that. You're not that bad. But for the grace of God go I. It's like all these things that I see could be me. I never thought I could do things like that, but guess what? I can. Because every line I set for myself, any good addict will draw a line and say, "Well, I won't do that." I might, like I remember when I relapsed once on marijuana, I said, "Well, I'm just going to smoke on the weekends. Friday and Saturday. That's it. Sunday, and then I'll stop." And then it was Thursday, and then it was Wednesday, and then it was all day, every day, all the time. There is no line that I will not cross. You know, um, there is no line I will not cross, and that's why I really do better with complete abstinence. And I do better with surrendering every day and saying, you know what, I am powerless over all this shit. Dear God, please remove this from me because if I use it, it's going to kill me. Right. And so here I kind of dabble with sugar. Right. And I say, oh, sugar's not going to kill me. Sugar will fucking kill me. Right. Diabetes is a real thing. You always go back to your drug of choice. Right. So it's in many ways, food and sex addiction are connected and it's tied together with lust, right? I lust after something. Even driving home last night, right? I had my younger daughter with me and we were driving home and she was playing music and it was kind of calming me, right? Like some Taylor Swift and stuff, but I was in a bad mood. And what did I really wanted to do? I really wanted to like stop at Arby's, right? And get like a freaking Jamocha shake and some of those potato cakes, the fried potato things. I just wanted to use food to change the way I felt. I wanted sweet, I wanted salty, I wanted savory, I wanted it all at 10 at night, you know? And, but I didn't do it because I had my daughter with me. I wanted to go to Taco Bell. We used to do that in the past. We'd stop at Taco Bell and shit and late night, on the way home from a concert or something. And, she was my little buddy. We'd get our Taco Bell or whatever. But it's like, I don't want to live like that, and it's because, I've been trying to eat 3 meals a day, measured portions, no snacks, no sugar, no white flour, right? And that kind of went off the rails lately because I'm in a relapse with my food. But I could see why 3 meals a day, no snacks, measured portions works, right? Because here I was at 10 o'clock, I'd already had 3 meals a day. I already had a shitload of sugar in the middle of the day because I just binged on it. And here I was at 10 at night wanting to get another meal, and it was like driving me. And I felt like an addict or an alcoholic wanting a drink. I wanted a drug, and I was lusting for it, and I was angry, and I was on edge, and I was driving, 95 miles an hour home, kind of pissed off. Just stay out of my way, get the fuck out of my way. I don't want to see any cops. I don't want any hassle from anyone. I mean, I was just full on addict, right? And that's just dangerous. That's no way to live. And that's part of that half measures availed us nothing. Half measures availed us half. I mean, here I was, I had a good time at the game, kinda. I mean, we kind of played shitty, but how different am I than other people? Don't other people feel that way? Don't other people watch the game and say, well, that sucked ass, and they get mad and they go and they have a drink or they smoke some weed or they, eat something? I mean, how different am I? They go home and have sex with their wife or they masturbate by themselves. I mean, whatever. It's like everybody wants to blow off steam. Everybody wants to feel better, right? Everybody wants to be happy. The trouble was, as an addict and an alcoholic, I just take it too far. I take it too far. I take it to the extremes, and when I play around with food addiction, it is symbiotic with sex addiction. They are hand in hand, right? If I eat and go off the rails, I am going to want to act out sexually and go off the rails too. It's proven. And it's just proven. And eventually, guess what I'll want to do? Drugs and alcohol. It all leads back. All roads lead to Rome, right? All roads lead to Rome. If I'm an addict and I fuck around with addiction, all roads lead to Rome. I will fucking die. It's not funny. I've seen so many people die in this program. I've had sponsees die. You get the call, you see the tweet, you see the Facebook post, yeah, they're gone. And they often don't say how they're gone, you know, they're just gone. They freaking overdosed. I mean, it every time, right? They overdosed. I remember one time one of my sponsee's parents reached out to me and they said, yeah, after he died, we found his journal. And in his journal, this kid, Andy, who really just struggled with life, this kid, Andy, and they called me and his parents said, and they said, he wrote about you in his journal. And he said you were such a good sponsor and he really respected you and you helped him a lot. He wrote about you. And we just wanted you to know that, it wasn't your fault that he died. Yeah, it wasn't my fault. Great. He still died. I mean, the poor guy had like hepatitis C. He was struggling, addict, alcoholic. He was a really good guy. But sometimes life is just too much. Life is just too much. And so here I am binging on sugar, eating every piece of sugar I can find in the house. But if I was back in my other addiction, right, like he was, he's shooting heroin. He's doing all the heroin he can find in the house. Now, the trouble with that is it fucking kills you, right? If I'm eating candy bars and M&Ms and all this bullshit and ice cream in my house, I'm probably not going to die right away. I'm not going to go into like a sugar coma and die. But if I have alcohol and if I have heroin and if I have cocaine and pills and I want to change the way I feel, I'm going to do it all and I'm going to overdose. And that's how people die. They don't necessarily want to die. They just don't want to feel anymore. They just want to feel so high and they just want more and more and more, because when I feel a little high, I want to feel more high. And I'm always chasing it. I'm chasing that feeling, that one feeling I got once in my life. The first time I had sex was so freaking amazing. I chased it for the rest of my life. The first time I got high felt so good. The first time I got drunk was so heavenly. I wanted to be back there every day for the rest of my life, and I could never find it again. I could never find that feeling. I want to fall in love over and over again because I love the feeling of falling in love. Morrissey sings about that. He says, here I am at the end of my life falling in love again. I want to chase the fucking feeling. So, I don't know. I don't even know if this helps anyone. This is probably like TMI. Like, who in the hell wants to listen to my train wreck, And my train wreck is probably not as bad as some people's train wreck. So, maybe not as bad as yours. I don't know. The point is, we're all in this together. I'm not alone. You're not alone, right? If you're an addict or an alcoholic, you're not alone because there's a lot of us out there, including me. I am such an addict. It's a miracle I'm alive. It's a miracle I'm alive. It's a miracle you're alive. I have 25 years sober from drugs and alcohol. That's a freaking miracle. There are people out there today right now struggling. There's people out there right now shooting up, drinking, getting high, and they can't stop, right? I understand that. It's a miracle. And if you get sober, that's a miracle. It is possible. You can do it, right? There's ways to get sober. You can do it. You can reach out. I'll help you, we can't do it alone though, right? We can't do it alone. We need to seek help. And that's one of the reasons I'm trying to be more public about this. That's one of the reasons I'm putting out content. I just published an amazing episode of my podcast today, not to pat myself on the back, but I interviewed a CSAT therapist who is just brilliant. And she shares her experience, strength, and hope. And it's really, really good information. So today I want to live in the light. Today, I'm not sure if I'm ready to quit sugar, honestly. I'm thinking about how I'm going to get sugar somehow today. But I am going to stay off drugs and alcohol. Oh, God help me. All right. Let's have a moment of silence followed by the third step prayer. God, I offer myself to thee to build with me and to do with me as thou wilt. Relieve me of the bondage of self that I may better do thy will. Take away my difficulties, that victory over them may bear witness to those I would help of thy power, thy love, and thy way of life. May I do thy will always. Amen. All right. Thanks, everybody, for listening. God bless you today. I hope you stay sober. I hope you have a good day because life is freaking difficult. I love you. And we'll see you next time on the Recovering CEO. Adios. Peace out.
You thought that you could have it all, and life could be a ball. Well, you fell and scabbed your knee.